Okay, let's talk about gestures today. So I have chosen these three pieces here, and they all have something very similar to them, which is this icky stiffness. Very icky. And what we do to counter this ickiness is by breaking down the workflow and the organization behind a gesture. And I've said this before, working with gestures has a lot of planning. It's just too much anatomy for you to freehand in the first shot. It's too much anatomy for you to freelance. Gesture is too much anatomy for you to, to freestyle. All right? So write that back to me. Gesture is too much anatomy for you to freehand or freestyle. You're supposed to be working at dissecting the anatomy piece by piece, component by component. So what comes first, the muscle or the skeleton? The gesture or the skeleton? The item that they're holding or the skeleton? The skeleton comes first before everything. The item in this case, the sword that this character is holding, is going to change the way the skeleton moves. So you have two things to work on from the moment one of gesture breakdown. What is the task, and how is the skeleton affected? All right, that's number one. For anyone who, and I'm doing this only because it's the sale week and sale season, and it's all pro bono. So for everyone who, I'm going to choose 3 of you or 2 of you, who has the best notes after today's class gets 3 brush sets. Okay. And for really good notes, like notes above and beyond, get a free portrait studio. Okay. All you gotta do is message me on, if you're chosen, I'll link you and you message me on Facebook. I really want good, detailed notes for this. So, by the way, the better the notes you make, the more that you'll find those notes written back in the books that I put together. So they're helpful in that as well, okay? So they're really good for me to remember what it is that I said during classes instead of me having to go back and watch them. It's good for other students who haven't caught the class, who don't have time to watch the whole friggin' class, can go back and just look at the bullet points. And I want more than bullet points. I want diagrams. I want detailed notes. I want not every single thing that I say, but the major points that I'm going to be making when it comes to gestures, okay? So step number 1, before anything, is what is the skeleton doing and how is the task affecting it? What is the task here? What is the task here? And what is the task here? The task here, he's standing, he's showing off his armor, he is he's standing in a glory pose, let's call it. The glory pose, he's just a character design, the character's stance, symmetrical and solid, wide-legged, high shoulders, proud shoulders, straight back, and holding the weapon is sort of a display of the character's, their personality as well. So the gesture in this case is reflecting the personality, but that's not what we're thinking about right now. It's though it does affect the kind of gesture we choose, the task at hand, the major function are the gun he's holding. That's his task. There's another task, and I'm going to make you guys guess it. What is, and I wrote about it in Figure Drawing for the Growing Artist. I've since taken that book down. It'll be back combined with the rest of my writings. But there is one more task that every one of these gestures has to deal with. What is it? Who read that book that I wrote? Antares, absolutely. The second most important task, or the task that is the most important one above all other tasks, is the skeleton has to withstand the pull of gravity constantly. So the pull of gravity does a number of things to what the gesture does. The gesture can't lean too much. The legs have to be planted. Weight has to be distributed between each leg. The weight that is distributed between each leg changes the symmetry of the hips. The hips then adjust and change the way the torso sits. When the torso is sitting on a leaning surface of the hips, the shoulders are affected. But here, leveled shoulders, leveled hips, asymmetrical legs. What's happening? So this one is carrying all the weight. Why is the head leaning on this side? The head should be shifted more this way. Basically, imagine the body without any skin. It would still function. But you guys paint as if the skin came first and then everything else was optional. The skeleton is not optional. All right? So that's basically how it is. You're responsible for skeleton first, and then you're responsible for muscle. How is this affected by the way you draw gestures? Well, first line, first level, first thing that you do are the stick figures. It's not just flat stick figures. It is the gestures, the C, S, or I gestures, the open or closed indicator gestures, which are X and 0 that I use. And I've been forcing all my students to identify whether it's an open or closed gesture, active, explosive gesture, or closed, inert gesture, a static gesture. So all of these things are affected by gravity. And then you have the task, another task, which is whatever extra weight or load or movement or motion that the object is affecting the skeleton with. All of those things are the first layer. The first level is whether or not the character is leaning, whether or not they are, just every single characteristic that come with this body. Level 2 is the muscle and all that extra stuff, that's spookiness, that is not this, that is the absence of the skin. All right, completely forget skin, because skin makes you start doing this. You think about skin, you're only thinking about surface stuff. And then you end up with a really, okay, wow, she's got a big booty. Really, really stiff gesture, because there's no skeleton, there's no task, there's no presence of gravity. It's only topical appreciation of what a body looks like. And that's why you guys draw bad gestures that are always stiff. There's no motion, there's no function. The body doesn't have a task. When the body has a task, it really feels active. Active means we're using all the muscles. This isn't just a flat surface, but this, prepare your brains for a mind-boggling revelation, is a cube. It's an open space. We have a z-axis on which this character exists. This z-axis right here, this z-axis, all of this. It's not just x and y. It's an in and out. This is z-axis, z-axis, z-axis. So that means this character isn't in an open space. This character isn't a flat picture. So this character that you've drawn here it feels like you've ironed him out. It feels like you got an iron and you just put him on the ironing board and you just ironed away. How do you draw an iron? There we go. That is not an iron. It feels I don't know what the fuck that is. It feels like you just ironed out your entire character. All right, so step 1, what is the task? How do I generate that task? Only using my gesture lines. So sometimes you're using an S for the general shape of the gesture. I love drawing mermaids for kind of pushing the animation behind my drawing. And that leads me to the next point. If we're drawing a mermaid that's supposed to look like she's swimming, how am I supposed to sort of express that unless I am looking at the frame that came before and the frame that came after? So there was a frame before this one and a frame that's after. Is he in the middle of adjusting between? Is he doing a dance? Is he deliberately leaving his head this way while the rest of his body is moving this way? What frame what motion is this? Is he leaning from one leg to another? It would still look appropriate. So that's basically what the issues are, and I'm going to paint over it, but when it comes to gestures, I really do want to leave a backdrop of explanation. I don't want to just correct it and say this is what is right. I want to explain it to you. So how do I correct this fella? Well, first and foremost, honestly, your background didn't have to be that light. The character is so dark. His light environment is so unbelievably light compared to the skin on his face, which is really dark. Not sure why you ran it this way. And I've talked about staging character design before. You seriously do not need anything other than the character against the gray background. You really do not need anything else. Okay, so let me just see if I can do it like that. Okay, so now we can see his face is like painted dark. I mean, this light environment makes zero sense with his face, but that's a whole other ballgame. Let's correct this dude. So I'm going to adjust the head to be this way, and I'm basically thinking about this leg as carrying all the weight. What is the task of gravity? Keeping the body against gravity, keeping the body erect, keeping it straight up. And then you hear the giggles in the background. All right, so do you see what I mean by the body wasn't really the head wasn't representing the body as shifted to one leg? And that's really it. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. You're either thinking about it in this order or you're not. You think basically, you decide on where the head's going to be in the gesture line. One basic sphere for the cranium, a cube shape for the rest of the face. It's not just one big circle, or else you're drawing chibis or some sort of cute big-headed children. And then you are dealing with the hip asymmetry or symmetry, which is affected by weight distribution on the legs. That's it. We never draw the arms before we draw the torso, ever. We never decide what the torso is doing until we decide what the hips are doing. And we never do any of this until we decide the first brushstroke is the spine. The spine is number one. The spine comes first. Your character will look flat. It will not look like it's in a world of gravity with tasks and functionality unless it's got the spine. What happens to you when your spine is, bone structure is degenerated or you have some kind of break in your back? Your functions go out the window. You're no longer a functional as intended by nature. Your back is everything to do with why you're standing up. Okay, so this is the end all and be all. You get this and the symmetry that comes with it. You get the gesture, period. If you've ever watched me sketch on live stream, if you've ever seen me sketch my personal work, I am always starting with the spine. If I start with the head, for some reason the head is the driving force of the creative energy behind why I drew that gesture. I start with the head first. The gesture almost always fails. The spine decides whether or not the gesture is leading the neck to be visible or not visible, whether or not the head is beneath the neckline or not, whether or not the character has a straight back or not. Okay, so these are very, very different frames in the animation right here. All right, so that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that you decide on the nature of the task, the function, whatever it is the skeleton is responsible for with the spine first. Once that's laid down, decide on where the head is going to be just for the sake of scaling, making sure the head's not too large. Decide on where the ground is going to be beneath the character. It doesn't have to be a perfect barbecue stick near everything like a kebab stick. It can be just a basic layout of where the z-axis is on all frontiers, on all poles. And then you decide on the location of the feet. Usually I leave just a general line or two just to help me decide where the ending point of this. And then I think about, or just think about the floor. Don't draw the feet yet. And then I think about what's happening with the hips, and I just go for the hips. I want the gesture to have, let me just follow this one. I want the gesture to have one straight leg, and I will actually just draw a straight line, because the thigh, the knees, the calves, the shins, everything is so locked together. It is the straightest the leg can be at that moment. Everything is straight together. A leg isn't perfectly straight, by the way. It's not just one straight line. When it locks, it's kind of curved, the human leg. You've got the strength of the thigh muscles, and then you've got the knee that's locked, and then you've got everything curving back forward towards the foot. One simple sphere here to represent the heel, and then another basic sphere to represent the big toe. So that's only from side view, but think about it as the straight line means that it is locked. This means locked. Then if you want to, a basic curve to show that this is the relaxed leg. The leg is a bit further, maybe facing away, whereas this one, because it is locked, the knee is locked forward. The shins, therefore, are locked forward. The heel is locked forward, and that means that the leg faces in the direction that the hip faces. All right, when the leg is locked, carrying all the weight, it has no chance to be wobbly and independable. It has to be dependable. That means everything is set up in a straight way. Everything is locked looking forward. And then this leg right here, and you have a lot of these down as well. Maybe you used a reference for this and you picked it up properly. But there are a lot of other indicators that threw off the gesture. And then this one, because the hip is low, everything starts a little bit later. This knee is less or lower than this knee. And then so we just connect everything back together and fill in the blanks. That's basically how you manage the massive complexities, the diverse complexities that come with breaking down a gesture. And you, again, like every other scientific thing, every other fundamental, it's all some really, really basic rules. It's all some really, really basic stuff. So right here, so we shifted the head over. I am going to increase the size of the head as well. It's a little bit small. And sometimes you get people that are a little bit taller than the head size, and they get like more like 8.5 heads, or almost 9 heads long. Usually it's just 8 heads long, 3 heads side by side, or 2 heads laying down width. It's not a specific science. Everyone's body is different, but these are the general proportions. I kind of lost the hand there. It's okay. So now that I corrected that, we have this straight hip to deal with. So let's correct that. This should have been done first, but I'm just going by whatever I'm following here in the critique. All right, so high hip means, or locked leg means high one side, low one side, and then low shoulder, high shoulder. There's another reason why this shoulder is being pulled down. He has a weapon that he's pulling, which is a little bit heavy. A weapon that he's holding. It's heavy, so it's pulling the shoulders down. And then we've got the awkwardness. See that? It's belly dancing. And then we've got the awkwardness of the shoulder plate right here. It seems to be behind the arms. So what you're doing here is you're creating the illusion. Let me tell you why it feels like it's behind the arms. When we've got that basic stacking fundamental of depth, those depth rules, we got one object in front of another, in front of another, in front of another, until they fade into the distance, and then they're no longer visible. Okay, so what are we seeing here? Oops, that we're seeing over here. So we are accidentally, even though the frame of the body plate might look like this, you've accidentally made it feel like arm is in front of breastplate, which makes no sense. Even if it was this kind of shape, even if the breastplate was shaped like this, the breastplate isn't just a flat picture or flat fabric. It's like a breastplate that sticks out a little bit. All right, so this sticky outy part actually looks like this from front view, not like this from front view. So I'm going to go ahead and correct that. Filter, liquefy. Shit. Okay. Make it a little bit more convex than concave. So he looks a little bit like, you know, his arms are not completely like in front of the breastplate, which is impossible unless they dislocated. Then I'm going to give him some width, okay? So he's a little bit too skinny. And considering that you're treating him not as some sort of lightweight rogue jumping from building to building, but as some sort of military man, armored and wide, you need to add width to him. You do not ever, 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 for games or any kind of other media, unless you're doing it for movies, trace over a realistic body. You exaggerate the body to fit the trope, always. If League of Legends characters were all proportionate in realism, we would not be able to tell who's a woman or who's a man from a distance. They'd all look like sticks. But you can see that in females, they exaggerate the curvature. In males, they exaggerate the upper body. Always. These are tropes. You don't like them, then go to Mars and be a Martian. But these are the tropes of human bodies. This is what they do when they're athletic, Olympic. And especially for always, like media is just full of athletic and Olympic characters, which is good because it's promoting like a healthy mindset. I am not for that, like the fat acceptance movement, or should I call it diabetes acceptance movement? So I'm for it. I'm okay with, you know, all bodies being represented in an Olympic way, the way they were meant to be. When you're an artist, you start to appreciate the function behind the body and how when it's not optimized in muscle structure, at least minor development, you're not like seeing the body in its full potential and what it can do, which is why I work out a lot. I don't want to just draw healthy bodies, like I want to have that too, and it's helped me with my studies as well. And then this leg, which one is more in front, the one that's locked or the one that's relaxed with the lower knee? So this one gets to be a little bit behind. All right, and then this leg, this whole leg here seems to be a little bit kind of like displaced. The shin doesn't seem to align. And then armor or whatever he's wearing probably have really exaggerated that trapezius area. So I'm just tucking that up. And it really feels like he's standing there, kind of trying to stand up, deal with his armor, hold up the gun, look badass, all at the same time. All right, and the slightest little changes, I have to adjust the legs in a second, the slightest little changes have really benefited this gesture. And then finally, the shins, they just feel like they need to be moved this way. Bloop. They just feel like they need to all be like straightened out. This one can be a little bit more relaxed or in the distance somewhere. All right, another thing that also happens when you're holding something, your shoulders can go up a little bit higher because you're overcompensating to keep the, but this is optional. This is another way to hold something basically. You basically sometimes overcompensate to keep an object up, and so you raise your shoulder to be higher than it should be. So sometimes we do this. Sometimes it's like that. All right, and another thing is tucking it behind enough. The arms are behind the chest. I mean, everybody put your hand on your chest. Girls, kind of just go a little bit lower. You know, you feel like groping yourself. But seriously, everybody do it. All right, knees into your sides of your body, straighten your back. Elbows into the sides of your body, and then put your hands on your chest. Where are your elbows? They're way back there, and your chest is way in front. There is a Z-axis quality. The chest is in front of the arms because the arms are on the side of the cube, and that's why your character felt like he was ironed out. It felt like he was flattened, like he was flattened by a bus or something. It's okay, it's Halloween, we get to talk about morbid shit. All right, so I'm putting the arm behind the chest. He's trying to keep this gun up, but he still looks so good at the same time while doing it. And he's just standing there being a badass. And this arm, same exact thing. It's just way, way too visible. And this is what happens when you use photographs to help you out. So you have used photographs, it's when you don't have the anatomy language behind you, but you've got the super realistic resource you're using, it can show that you don't have anatomy language. It can show that you don't have anatomy familiarity because you just don't know what to do with it. Okay, so another thing that I would do is lean the head just a little bit. The head wobbles around to keep yourself balanced. Just try to imagine what you would naturally do if you were on some kind of thing that you're trying to balance on, like you know how you can walk on sidewalks. Your head stays stiff because it knows that if it shifts either this way or that way, it's shifting the torso, and the torso shifts and then you fall off. But when you're standing all relaxed, leaning on one side, you tend to just keep it kind of just flopped on one side. And then finally is the flatness of the foot. The foot really needs to look like it's flattened out. Okay, so just like that. Okay, the arm feels a little bit, this arm here would relax. It has no task. It's got no job other than to make him kind of look bigger, like some sort of, he's fluffing his feathers to make himself look bigger, which you can keep that there. It does tend to look a little bit stiff. The face is really dark, really super dark. If you want to be that kind of artist, you don't have to memorize every single possible. You don't have to perfect the way you draw a face. You can just keep it so it's just, you understand general anatomy, but you're not, you don't know how to draw a face, but you know how to put photos together. You can do that, but there's still a great deal that you have to understand. Okay, and then I'm just gonna relax this shoulder right here. Since because I lifted this one, I've got to relax the other one. Forgot to do that. But we could have left this one kind of leaning. All right, and then because it's lifted up, this side would relax just a little bit more. Okay, so before, after, before, Do you see how the arms feel like they're in front? He feels like he's been run over and flattened out after. Okay, so for the armor, it's so detailed that it's just demanding my attention right now. And you've placed the little triangles right where his nipples would be, so I'm just like seeing some kind of, you know, like just like a hint toward where the nipples would be, which I don't feel like is a very, you know, super masculine armor piece, especially for what you're going for. But I feel like he's a little bit more naturally standing now. I would just completely get rid of the little nipples. Let me just get rid of those. Okay. And before, after. So that's really all that goes into it. I would continue some kind of, men have less thick legs than women. They have very skinny legs. So I would, it still feels very awkward because all the photos that you've used, and this detail level here is so high for the little, I'm not sure what it's called, this holster. It just feels so high. I mean, the detail level feels so high compared to the face. The face should be high detail. And the detail of the face, which is generally very low compared to what a portrait does, should be at the same level as everything else. All of this is attracting way too much attention. When you're photo bashing, make sure that everything has the equal level of detail. So you really can't photo bash unless you know how to draw. Photo bashing is just combining different photos together. I'm just going to not make his pants look like leggings. I'm just going to lower the crotch just a little bit. And possibly because of the photo, I possibly might just even want to widen him. Make him look a little bit more natural. But do you see how this arm is pretty much doing nothing? Okay, so it speaks a little bit more toward the heavy weight that he is, and he feels less ironed. His head is leaning on one side. And that's pretty much it. I like the one where the arm was just leaning down. I like the one where the arm was kind of just stuck, kind of drooping away. I like that one. He kind of feels like he's got more sass. Kind of ready to like smack someone with it. As before. He just feels like he has more sass. And if we lower this one, we gotta heighten this one. It's always one or the other. Don't droop both, or else you're just gonna make a character look like he's just sad, and then you're gonna use that kind of like typical gesture. And when I mean like tropes, I mean what someone would do if they were doing interpretive dance. When someone's sad, they kind of just droop and their shoulders are low, and when someone's proud, they straighten their back, shoulders are high. I don't want it to be so high that he looks like he's leaning on something. But then the reference that I picked up for this is basically this fella. Though he's not the same physique, as you can see, the arms are drooping. One leg is holding everything up, which is this leg. This is the leg that's relaxed. This hip is higher than this one. This one gets to relax and kind of just droop in, and this one just gets to do what it wants. The head is leaning on one side. Seriously, Windows, it's worst photo viewing software ever. And then see how his head is leaning to one side. This shoulder is high. It's not really lifting anything, but it's because this one got to droop and sit on top. His posture is very bad as well. All right, this leg is more straight and in the back. This one's kind of just leaning. You can put this one in the front as well. Okay, and this one's just flat against the side. But symmetrical in shoulders, nope, everything just kind of leans this way. So if we were to draw a gesture line or a line of, what's the trend line? That goes this way, that goes this way, perfectly leveled. One is in front, one is behind. Knees, this is higher, this is lower, and these are called landmarks, anatomy landmarks, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, and then the arms are last. We always put the arms last. They are attachments, they are accessories. They don't change the pose unless they are reaching for something really high. At that point, the shoulders hide the neckline. Okay? And then you see how the arms are behind the body. They're not in front of the body. They're just at the sides of the body. Not so much behind, but they're on the sides, tucked away. All right, so there's that one. Now what's the task of this one? This one is a lot more complicated. Also, I wanted to show you the lean on this one as well. So we've got straight leg, behind, carrying all the weight, head leaning in, shoulders asymmetrical. This one's leaning forward, lifting the, well, this one has a high shoulder, and the other one had a high shoulder because this leg here was moving forward, and when we step forward, this shoulder looks like it's ahead of this one. It's only because, or higher than, it's only because this one is forward more. And then we've got asymmetrical hips, asymmetrical shoulders, straight leg, but he's not just standing, he's in the middle of a stride, kind of like a really basic relaxed stride, but very similar in the Hellenic lean that we have over here with the head size. And then we have this one here, black background to accentuate the glow. But even then, the glow should have been just a little bit brighter. It should have been something like this, so it really glows, or else just don't make the background like that. It feels like this is what a flashlight would do in midday, and this is what a flashlight would do in the nighttime. It would just look more luminous. But let's correct some of this stuff. So we've got, I'm going to separate the shoulders and the arms completely. Okay, cancel. Why is Photoshop so serious about the locked layer? Like, chill out. This is a locked layer. Are you sure? This is undoable. Okay, so let's think about the gesture itself. So we've got the spine. What's the spine doing and what's the task? He is leaning forward and he's holding a sword. So that sword is going to pull him forward. He has a lunge to compensate and a relaxed leg in the background. So that lunge does this. That leg bends and does almost a stance. That leg bends forward like that. It doesn't matter if it's not proportionate. We've got a head that is lower than the shoulder line, so the neck is disappearing. And then we've got one arm in the back ready for with a magic spell, but that arm is not ahead of the torso, so we have to decide on what the torso. So the shoulders can come before the arms. The shoulders can be considered, the arms drawn at the end. You can think about what the arms are doing, what they're affecting the shoulders. And then we've got one shoulder in front. Look at the spine. It's telling me that everything is leaning forward. So we're seeing, and in a 3/4 view that's not symmetrical. So we're seeing the side of the torso like this. So this arm is going to be in front and to the, like in front of, because it's on the side and we're seeing the z-axis, the side of the cube. Then we've got the hip pretty much leveled. And then I do the little spring that I do. I do a little spring for arms and knees. This is elbows and knees because it helps remind me where the knee is facing. And then I make sure everything is leveled, so I draw a little line, making sure that is this going to be planted, is this going to be ready to jump? It really just depends. And then this arm over here, even though it's in the background ready with a spell, you can't just force the visibility of that arm like that just so we can show the spell. He might raise it up and we'll see the spell developing a little bit, but it's not the ideal position to show the spell. If you really wanted to show the spell and the sword, you might want to just straighten this arm out and kind of just have the spell right there. His arms are facing this way, ready for this massive like shot put kind of throw of the spell. And then you've got the sword, which he's holding pretty casually. I mean, he doesn't feel like he's threatening anyone with it. It's not in a position where he's just showing it like he's about to give it to someone. He doesn't really feel like he's about to smack someone with it. So if you really want to make that feeling come across, you might want to just give it like more of a, you know, I have my sword right here and there's the blade and I'm ready to smack you if you come anywhere near me. I don't know what the hell I just drew. Let me just draw a stick for this sword, just like that. Okay, so that's a little bit more of an active gesture, and look at how much anatomy we've considered. Oh my God, it's all taken care of. Really? I don't have to worry about this? I don't have to repaint this 5 hours into the illustration? Really? Do I deserve all this luxury? Well, you do if you work at it, and you do if you consider all of this. So this is exactly what was missing in this. You drew the face, and then you had a minor gesture that you forgot about 30 minutes in. And then you had a reference that you also forgot about 30 minutes in, and you said, hey, you know what's going to save this lack of gesture work? The glow my character will have. He'll have so much glow, man. It'll just be the best glow ever. And that's what's going to fix everything. So I'm just going to invert this and then save it. And then go back to our corrections. So we're getting rid of the arms. Help me break all this down, because the arms don't come first. The arms do not come first. The torso comes first. The rotation of the torso comes first. This is the kind of stuff you write down. What comes first with the torso? The rotation and the spine. What is the spine saying about the symmetry visibility? The body is painfully symmetrical. And because it's so symmetrical, you always have to think about how rotated is it? And in the spine with its convex or concave shape, am I going to see all of the back or some of the back? And if I'm seeing some of the back, I'm going to be only seeing the back in front of the distant arm. It's not just one object in front of the other. It's completely just stacking. And those who say that form studies are just good for rendering, they're not good for gesture, you are studying gestures when you're studying form studies, because the massive part of gestures, the unit that I teach my students, and I assign them form studies ahead of gestures, is I see that, okay, fine, you can copy a reference, clap, good for you, you can copy a reference. Can you do this on your own? Can you break this down on your own? No, you can't. Well, that's because you don't know how to dress the stick part. You finish the stick figures, you get into the cubes, and you just fall off, you just crumble. And that's because they don't believe in stacking. They don't understand the rotation and the sides of the cube. This is all cube stuff, guys. So adjustments and then invert. I'm just going to leave that up here for me, and then I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by the side of the cube. So we're seeing the side. This is the bottom of the cube. This is the front. Then we're seeing the sphere. And what do I use shapes for? I use cubes for I use like a triangular cube for the, see that cube? For the thighs. It should really be like this. Okay, I use a sphere, like a spherish kind of circular shape, circle really, it's not a sphere, you don't have to draw this the axis. For calves, for the butt, which you don't have to worry about unless it's a girl. Sad to say, I'm sorry, we really do not draw characters unless there's like a specific niche you're working toward, especially characters like this with their butts showing. Feminist Frequency talks about this a lot, as controversial as she is, but really designers have no business in the sex appeal with males as they do with females. So Batman's ass is always covered in games. All the characters, all like the first person characters in games and stuff, that their butts are always hiding or somehow. And then we really think about the gestural role the buttocks plays for female characters, because men just aren't shaped this way. Like, I kind of want to explain that to her, but I don't think she's going to listen to me. But, you know, the females are faced, they're drawn this way. So a lot of the gesture is affected by this big circle we have in our hips and our butts. So we do have to think a lot about this. For them to have a cat woman that's walking in the cat-walky way, she has to walk like she has sex appeal. One, because she's super curvy, and two, she's based off a cat. And that is because she has this this massive sexual narrative behind her character design. So really, you don't need to worry yourself with more spheres for males. It's more spheres for women because we just have more curves. And a lot of our walk cycle has curves in it. Just look at how Disney characters were illustrated. Just as Cinderella was illustrated. She was not a sex character. She was not a sex object. She was very, very modestly dressed, but she has so many spheres in the way she walks, in the way she washed the floor. Lots of spheres, lots of sex appeal with unintentional sex appeal. And that's because we just have big butts. That's how our body, our estrogen, everything adjusts the body's silhouette. And these are tropes you have to work with. Don't fuck around with them, or else you're going to draw ambiguous, androgynous characters for the rest of your life without meaning to. Okay? So another place where I use spheres, so that's the butt, which plays a massive role in female characters. Also, female characters have a smaller upper body. I use a cube for the forearm and a cube for the thing is, with me, I see the cube because I've done this 1,000,001 times, but for you, if you don't see the cube, please draw it in, try to find it. A sphere, of course, for breasts if it's a female character, and a sphere for the heels. Once I decide, I also use a spring for the foot. It's really nice in helping me find how the foot is bending forward. just like that, to see how the foot bends forward like this. Oopsie. Okay, so I use that spring, this little thing. I call it a spring. I really don't know what it's called. And that's it. That's how I would break this down, and then I would lower all of this down to some really, really low opacity. If I'm going for line art or sketchy stuff, I just do this and just start drawing my final layer of sketching. But if this is going to be a painting, I just leave it like this and just start to render. I start to think about where everything is and just paint as if I'm painting. You can also sketch in where the clothes are going to be, so you know where the characters, you know, everything that he's wearing, all of that stuff, you can adjust that right there. Again, do not accent the ass crack for males. It is like the biggest female signifier. I'm sorry to say, it's not some sort of like an anti-feminism thing. It's really in the trope and in the read of the character. Even when women are bulky, their butts are bigger and than what men can do with their butts when they work out. All right, I'm going to throw a pair of boots. So now everything makes sense, and you can start just going crazy. I have his collars here, have his shoulder, have his arms, and then I have the sword. I'm not sure why you would draw a character from this distance, from this angle, unless there's something he's looking at. Composition-wise, it's a really bad angle for character design, or even an illustration, unless he's looking at something like a monster coming in, or some sort of Pokemon he's about to kill. Okay? Do not accent the ass crack in males. Yeah, it's just, it has, if you do that, you're using a big circle. That's all it is. It's not some sort of anti-woman thing. You're using a big circle. Men's butts, I don't know if you've seen any men's butts lately, but they don't do this. They do this. They literally do this. Okay, I know they're circular, they're not actual squares. They do more of a this than a this, which is very feminine, all right? It's what gives us our curves, our hormonal structure. That's all it means. Do not accent the perfectly convex shape of the bum, okay? And that's it. So this is what I would overlay here. You need to lean him forward more. So I'm going to use this to adjust your sketch. So bear with me, it'll be really quick because we have our blueprint right there. And I'm just thinking, how did you guys ever try or thought you were ready for gestures if a full illustration of the gesture, if you weren't even like thinking about any blueprinting? Like, how were you pulling it off? How are you justifying it? You know, going into rendering that early. It's just not right. So I'm going to just select, oops, and then we'll call it a day. I know it's been very, very high. You know, it's such like particular rules, one weird rule after another, but that's what it is when you learn how to draw portraits and bodies. You're basically learning the complexity of the human, which is all cutting edge science, even until today. I mean, the human body is a very difficult thing to understand. There's just so many components keeping it together. Okay, so I'm going to lower the head and then I'm going to fix the shoulders. Lower that down beneath that. Fix that. So the head is beneath the shoulder line. That's the key a role that the spine is playing right now. It leaned the body so much. And remember, the neck is part of the spine. Write that back to me. That's probably like the most important thing about the spine right now. The neck is part of the spine. It connects straight into the spine, and the spine connects straight back into the neck. All right, so one shoulder is higher. He's holding the sword, and the other shoulder is behind, casting the spell. Then we bring the arms back, and I'm going to make that beneath. This arm is going to lean this way. It's still, you know, this is still all cut and paste. This is a terrible, terrible thing to do to a painting that you've been working on for hours. I really can't do the whole bendy arm sword thing here. I'm just going to leave it like that. But honestly, if you guys are not blueprinting your gestures, you have no business trying the gesture. And this is somewhat of an improvement. It's this is the ideal, but unfortunately we did not start off like that. Okay, so what I usually assign my students, and I'm not really going to not tell you guys about it, it's not some sort of secret. I assign my students just gesture drawings. All of that illusion art, line art, final layer that I do when I'm drawing my sketches, that's nothing. That's garbage. That's nothing. That's all the topical glitter and glamour. But if you have a table that is not an actual table, if you have a table with 3 legs and it's like a square tabletop and you have 3 legs, it's gonna fall apart. It doesn't matter how much glitter and top coat and carving you put on the table. It's just a functional piece of crap, an unfunctional piece of crap, dysfunctional. You have to have all 4 legs of the table. I'm so sorry for the analogy, but that's what I always use. And when you're missing the skeletal structure beneath all of the dress and all of the costuming, you're missing the basic task of the gesture, what its task is supposed to be against gravity and any tools you've dressed the character with. Right now, he looks like a Hulk. There's not much I can do without redrawing the whole thing. The gentle stacking of the shoulder ahead of the torso, our shapes gave us that. The stretch of this leg over here, that needs to be doing something like that. He still looks stiff no matter how much I adjust him. He looks less stiff, but definitely stiff. And that's because it's just, there's just so much you're benefiting from being able to blueprint your gesture. He still looks stiff no matter what I do. I'm going to give him that short jacket. Try to make this seem like it's in front. It's just he looks very hulky. It's not the same flexible, kind of like athletic pose we have here. It's just very, very, very flat. But at least it's an improvement. And this guy is looking up, whereas this guy is looking down. After all of this, after that cat-like pouncy body movement, he's still looking forward at his target, which is making him look a little bit more athletic. Kind of like a runner before they shoot the gun and tell them all to run. He's kind of just looking at his target. Okay, the arm here needs to be hidden more. Oops. Just hidden a little bit more, like that. That'll kind of work to make him feel a little bit more normal. Okay, so if we look at where you had it before, my friend, he was very stiff, very unusual gesture, not at all open. This is an open gesture. His arms are open, and the signature of an open gesture, as I discussed it in figure drawing for the growing artist, is a gesture that looks like an X because it's all wide. A gesture that looks like an X is a character that is struggling to stay balanced in the moment of explosive energy. And in that moment of explosive energy, all their muscles are stressed and intact and flexed, and that means that the body has this X-like shape to it. It's very characteristically X shape when the body's in. Think about any specific. Let's just think about shot put. Just an Olympic shot put. The body ends up being in an X when it's at the highest explosion of the energy. Here, if someone's just landed and they're landing on like the hero landing, another X shape. So that's all. It may seem like very complicated, but you can summarize it with some really basic gestures to help you break down. Just like we block in and use cubes and spheres to help us make sense of the anatomy and the complex anatomy of a face, we do the same thing with a gesture. Okay, and then this one, it's not so much. Oh yeah, but I'll show you one more before and after. Do you see that? He seems like he's in the middle of a dance scene. He seems like he's just dancing around with a sword. He's not ready to kick some ass. And I'm not sure what the background's all about. You have no business trying a masterpiece. Go straight back into your gesture drawings. Why? Because one day you're going to have an amazing idea and you're not going to have the skill to perform it. Just like you had a nice idea here and you didn't have the skill for it. Get this shit out of the way. Get the studies out of the way. They will help you and prepare you for that day where you cannot fight off this wonderful idea you have. And no matter what you do, it keeps just shaking you until you sit down and start drawing. And do you want to meet that day and perform for that inspiration with a skill level that is prepared for what's required of you to pull it off, or do you want to just go in wobbly kneed like a child who's just learning how to walk? You want to be prepared, okay? And then we've got this one finally, which is more to do with the fact that you started with the face study and they're like, hey, I'm a great fan of The Witcher. Let me see if I can turn this into fan art, which is the story behind every single fan art ever. Is it started off as a study and then the student said, hey man, why waste this? Let's make it a fan art. Let me get some likes. All right, so that is, yeah, you started off as a study, you added a body. Maybe you didn't do this. I don't know, but from my experience, students almost always do this without even admitting it. You had no space. You need more space. If you had planned what you had intended for this painting, you might have had a little bit more success. But he seems like he's just standing there looking into the distance, thinking about gutting a witch. Okay. Ah, the joys of gutting witches. Ah, the smell of witch blood in the morning. Or whatever it is he hunts down. What does he hunt down anyway? Is it witches or is it like ghouls? I don't even know. I'm not a gamer. Okay. So you run out of space and you're like, oh shit, I'm running out of space. What do I do? What do I do? I'm not just going to cut it off because that's a sin. You know, I should do that probably, but no, I have to show it all. So I'm just going to raise the shoulder up. And this is what happens when you're just running out of space and you're like, shit, how do I show as much anatomy as possible before I run out of space? I don't know why you guys do this to yourselves. You know you're working with Photoshop, right? You know you can just increase the size of the canvas. Wow, a lot of comments being silenced today. I bet a lot of people are salty. All right, so you're running out of space. You were kind of scared. And you're just like, yeah, let me just, you weren't even running out of space. But this is what we do. And you know how when you're on a bike and you're trying to avoid a tree, but God help you, you hit the tree anyway? It's like when you guys are avoiding the edge, you end up working toward the edge anyway and allowing the edge to affect you in some way or another. So it's exactly the same thing. I don't know what the scientific word is. Target. What does it mean? I don't know what it is. But, okay. So this is the issue with this one. He was just standing straight, but you gave him as if he was leaning against a wall or something like, where is the gesture I picked up for it? Something like this, leaning against a wall or raising his arm up. His shoulder was up, but like his arm was down, which seemed like he was leaning on something or holding something or something like that. Okay, and that's it for today. So much stuff. Some announcements. Portrait Studio is still on sale and will be on sale for a while, like basically 2 weeks. But if you have issues buying Portrait Studio is a reference generator software that my team and I developed. If you're having issues buying it, if you looked at the price after one of my videos and you saw that it is too expensive, it's only going to get more expensive. The sale is only now, and I'm talking about for another 6 months or another 4 to 6 months, you're not going to see another sale like this. And I'm only doing this now because I know students want it and they're having trouble with the price anyway, and it's going to benefit the way you develop blocking in, the way you understand rotation and portraiture. And in light of all the gesture talk we've been covering today, there's going to be a posable mannequin. And the mannequin is very similar to something that you can get off Amazon, those art mannequins, those high detail ones with muscles that are posable, and they have that stand. Well, instead of having the stand take up space on your desktop, we're just going to throw, even though it's called Portrait Studio, I said I don't care, let's just throw a mannequin in there and all that light so you can have and adjust the body as you need and have an actual posable full body model unique to Portrait Studio in Portrait Studio, and have all the light and the camera changes accessible to you. So you don't have to go to any pre-posed stuff online. You don't have to do those 5-minute pose changing websites. You just have this open room. You get to control the camera. You want to look at an extreme worm's eye view with the mannequin. That's upcoming. But this is all going to come in the upcoming update. It is not current. And it's only going to get more expensive after this update. I want to be as transparent as possible with development. I don't want to just make the price explode out of nowhere without letting you guys know why it's going to go up that much. I've been talking about the update for like 5 or 6 months now. I hope that all of you who picked it up find it useful. How it looks right now is going to be very different. It's going to be exactly the same program, but it's just going to look better, work better. Hopefully it's not too stressful on your computers. If the current version is stressful on your computers, please let us know through Facebook. We do a lot of posts and updates on what the update is coming with. So let us know if it is affecting your computers in any way. And when you install it, for the love of Odin, please make sure you turn off or temporarily just disable your firewall or your antivirus. We're in the process of being certified for this program as the actual developers, so it's not green lighted yet or whitelisted or whatever. So please turn off your antivirus. And about antiviruses, nobody needs antiviruses anymore unless you're out there downloading every single pop-up ad, and nobody has pop-up ads anymore. Because everyone has a ad blocker. And I'm not going to ask you guys to whitelist me. I hate ads on YouTube. I hate all ads. I would not want anyone to whitelist me for the sake of an income that is in cents and pennies. So yeah, just get some ad blocker, please. A lot of the people who talked about issues with Portrait Studio installation are the kind of technologically inept that they don't have ad blocker, which is killing me inside. Get ad blocker, disable your antivirus, and download Portrait Studio and install it without any issues. That's the only way, really. Please disable your antivirus for Portrait Studio. And that's it for today. I will take some questions, so if anyone has any questions regarding all of the stuff that I covered today, you can ask it now. I'm not going to be able to answer them all, but anything relevant to what we covered. So any questions at all? Because I know there's a whole bunch of stuff I haven't discussed because it just didn't come up in the paintovers. Yes, get ad blocker. I don't care. How to make Portrait Studio interface bigger. I think it's you just drag the window from the bottom corner. uBlock Origin for life. I have AdGuard, I have uBlock Origin, and I have AdBlock Plus. Yes, the menu will be bigger. It'll be adjustable. Absolutely. These are all these are all pre-reported issues that we've been working on in this entire update. How much is it in pounds? And the sale price, probably like 30? Or no, that's euros. Is that pounds or euros? So for the skeletal structure in water, where should the gravity movement be? In water, so if the character is floating, it's just you have more of a relaxed spine and a relaxed shoulder, but it's just if the character is just floating there, you have more of a zero gravity, no gravity kind of deal. So it's no longer legs need to be balanced. You can have asymmetry, you can have a wobbly hip, and it wouldn't affect anything. You're not required to stand up in water, which is why you don't really worry about any of this. But please don't worry about that condition. Consider what all the work involved in painting a character standing, and perfect that for a little while, or crouching, or jumping, or squatting. $50, I'm broke. I want it though, sorry. Now that you're reading, I just want to say thanks for the sale again. It really helped me out. Oh, you're very, very welcome, Scribble Fox. 3 ad blockers. Yes. When is the precise day that the sale ends? So it started on Monday. It's going to end on the 23rd. 1, 2. The 23rd is going to be the last day for the sale. The 24th, there will be no sale. You have 2 weeks. All right? I'm going to just change it back to the price. Give a couple days for the update. It'll go back to the original price. Or continue being at the full price, and then the update will go out. All right? There is no more time. There is no more time right now. So it was just a possibility for us to do the update. Someone posted that announcement without running it through with me. I did have a lot planned for today's session. Pirate Bay is filled with viruses and phishing sites links, especially archived files. Honestly, you really shouldn't be using Pirate Bay. There are, never mind. Just look at the points. Look at the thumbs up. They will talk a lot about, and the comments. Read the comments on any torrent before you do anything like that, which is technically illegal. Is it bad if I think on cylinders instead of cubes for the limbs? Yes, it is, Henrique. Do not put cylinders where there are no cylinders. We don't just have cylindrical thighs. We have thighs with sides to them, Henrique. The cube comes before the cylinder. If you were to use a cube instead of a sphere for all those fat pockets, even a cube for the butt, I wouldn't complain. As long as you use cubes. Cylinders are easy, which should be the biggest green light or the red light for you to think that it might not be the best idea. You want cylinders because they're easy to wrap your head around. Because we think in Michelin Man, we see basic shapes, whereas the cube is not so basic. And the cube shows the z-axis, the cylinder not so much. I'm not sure what you asked me, Clarissa. I just see an @ Istebrak. You're very welcome. You guys accepting kidney for payment? What about the online Christmas sales? I did mention that there might be a sale in Christmas, but it's not going to be nowhere near what this sale is doing, which is almost 50% off what it's going to be. It's that we're not going to have a sale like this for a long time. It might be like 10% off or 5% off. Just because it's Christmas time, and I don't know why in Christmas we just put stuff on for sale. I don't know why. I don't even need to do that because I don't have quarterly capitals to make, and I don't have to get rid of stock and liquidate my stock to get new stock for the coming year. I don't even know why I do that. I don't need to put anything on sale in the Christmas. It's all digital. But anyway, the cube shows the z-axis exactly, which is what you need to dress your skeleton with. That's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining. And please remember the challenge. Read about the challenge if you guys want to join it. It's an excellent challenge, really, really fun. But yeah, see you later, guys. See you next Tuesday. Bye.